Hi. So I'm not going to go through any of the components because that's boring. I think we're just going to start building. When you're building a PC, the best place to put the motherboard is back on top of the box. Safest place for it. I think I'm going to put some gloves on so that I don't get fingerprints all over everything. So first things first, we'll get the processor in because that's easily the scariest bit. So to get the processor in, all that you need to do is you just lift this little arm up, and in the top corner of the processor there's a little arrow. I don't know if you'll be able to see it from there, but everything gets lined up to that arrow. And just open. Now inside here there's a little cooler, but for yours we've got a much nicer cooler, so this one can just stay in its box. They're very common actually, everybody who gets one of these processors has one of those fans, so they don't really sell for so much. And then, yeah, there's nothing else in the box. This is an AMD Ryzen 3600, so it's a 3000 series processor. So as of today, it's the latest one on the market. But as with all things computing, there'll be a new one out next week. And the main goal now is to get the processor out of this little packet without bending any of the millions of little pins on the bottom. Just going to re-verify which corner we're in. It's this corner to this corner. When they go in, you never push them. That's a really good way of bending the pins. So you just give it a little wiggle, make sure it's seated, make sure pin 1 is on pin 1, and then just push this little arm down to lock it. And that's it. The processor is installed. I think next we'll do the memory. So this memory is Corsair Vengeance Pro RGB memory. Now I actually ended up getting the faster version. These processors really enjoy very fast RAM. So this is 3.2 gigahertz RAM. It's really nice. Nice metallic sheen to it. RAM's easy enough to install. There's a little notch in the bottom, and all you do is you line that notch up with the notch in the motherboard, and you just double confirm which is slot 1. So we've got a little chart in the corner. So we've got A1, B1. So the first one goes closest to the processor with both the clips open, and then it's just a matter of pushing down till you hear a little click, and then the same for the other side. So there's one installed, and then you go one slot over. Sorry, it's A1, A2, so they're actually right next to each other. Get them lined up nice. Push down one side, and push down the other. Beautiful. So now we've got processor and RAM installed. Next one is solid state drive. Now these things are like Ferraris, so they're very fast, but there's not a lot of boot space, as in like space in the boot for stuff. So the storage isn't very good, but they are incredibly fast. So for this drive, we're going to install the operating system, which is Windows. But once Windows is installed, oh yes, beautiful. There it is. There's a packet with a little teeny tiny screw in it. The slot. So we're going to want socket 3. So reading the instructions, what we're going to do is we're going to move this RAM to the more efficient ports. There's always a benefit in reading the instructions. So the primary ports are actually A2. And just double checking, B2. Just that slight increase in performance. You run them in dual channel mode. Now, got a really nice fancy little screwdriver. I'm sure you'll appreciate that one, Graham. Now the hard drive installs in this little port here. The hard drive installs in this little port, but I also need to put the screw receiver into the longest one, which is going to be a laugh because it's tiny. Yes, very good. I'll see if I can get it started with my fingers with these silly gloves on. The gloves do actually serve a purpose. It means that you get your computer without any fingerprints all over the inside of it. Unfortunately, these things are very expensive, but later in the build you won't be able to see this because it'll be underneath the graphics card. So the plan now is to hold the little drive down and get this microscopic screw in. There you go. So that's the hard drive installed. So now we've got RAM, processor and hard drive. We're actually most of the way there. In fact, we're only a graphics card and a power supply that goes in on this side, this port over here. And then technically the PC would boot up. So that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to boot up the PC outside of the case, so then I know if there's any problems with the RAM or the processor or anything like that, then I can sort those out before before it's all tight and awkward inside the case. So what do I need? We've got some really lovely brand spanking new, well, brand spanking new to 2019 MX4 thermal paste. Now what this does is this goes on top of the processor, and as the processor generates tons of heat, there's a little dirty mark on it. That's not right, is it? As the processor generates heat, this is like a thermal grease that fills in all the little microscopic imperfections in the top of the processor, and it means that the heat from the processor can get to the cooler much faster. The cooler really is recommended to be this one. But this is too small for such a powerful system. Well, it's not officially, but who doesn't want a bigger cooler? So we'll box this one back up, and for a size comparison I'll go and get the cooler that you are actually having. Dun dun dun! So this is the cooler off of Ryzen 9 processors. This is a Ryzen 5, but it just has a much higher heat throughput and makes your processor stay cooler for longer, which is obviously more better. You can either run this in RGB mode, red, green, blue, but I also believe it has addressable LEDs, and there's a couple of extra leads that go into these ports here. So these little rubber things come out and then you can put new leads in them. For now I'm not going to do that until I get a little bit later in the build, then we can start doing the design on the colours and things like that. Now I might fast forward this little bit because it's going to be quite awkward getting the little getting little hooks to hook onto the socket in the processor. I do know that it's really fiddly, so I'm going to fast forward this a little bit and make me look dead professional. So before I put any paste on it, I'm just going to do a quick trial fit. Yeah, online they made that look really difficult, and it definitely isn't. So I think this time I'm actually going to put some thermal paste on it and get it mounted up properly. This is just a nice way of guaranteeing that there's no old thermal compound on there that's subpar. You know, it's not quite as good as the one that I'm going to put on. There was a little tiny bit on there, not much. Nothing to write home about now. Now, this is the most hotly contested thing in the entire PC building world, and it's how much do you put on? Now, there's a million different arguments for all the different things that you can do with this, but what I like to do is I like to ignore it all completely and do what most people do, which is a comparatively large sized pea-sized blob right in the middle, like so. And that is probably slightly too much, but I definitely want the whole top of the processor to be covered in that grease when I slap this bad boy on. Do you have a particular way around? Not really. Whatever, we'll go with this way. I'll put you on first. There you go, mounted. There you go, just took that cable down there nice and neat. So this wire is the controller for the lights on the fan. And it goes in that little port there. Lovely. So what's next? Okay, I think next we'll do the boot up of this system just to make sure that it posts. Which means actually we need to push this to one side for a second. So we definitely need to push this aside 1 second when I get the pièce de la résistance. The RTX2070. I'm so jealous of this card that you're getting it and I'm not. This is one amazing piece of hardware. So every game out currently, this will run it at max settings, no problem. Look at that, beautiful. It's important that you keep hold of these boxes. If anything breaks down in the future, because the computer was bought in components, they only do component level support. So if you need to return something and you don't return it in an anti-static bag, which is these things, then they're really funny about doing the repair. So it's always better to just keep hold of these boxes. If anything ever happens to the graphics card or the RAM or anything like that, it just goes back into the box that it came in and you ship it back to me, or them. Normally, there's a case here and there's a little screw on top of here that you mount in, but just for the time being we're not going to worry about that because I'm just going to do a quick boot up. So to get it to sit, we need to put the edge of the card off the edge of the motherboard. Just line up the slot and push it. And that's literally it. That's it. It's in. Now all I need is power. So we'll open up the power supply. And give this system its first run up just to make sure that everything's okay. Wow, cables, lots of them. Cables and twisty things. I'll be picking these up off the floor for weeks. Oh yes, a fully wired one. Nice big mess of cables for me to deal with later. Get rid of this box, don't need it. Big motherboard power goes at the back of the motherboard, on the side of the motherboard I suppose it is. Yeah, it's the side. But it also helps if you plug it in the correct way around. That's one power. And then the graphics card needs some power. Oh baby. There you go. So now the graphics card is powered and inserted properly. And then you just need one more of those. Now to get the computer to turn on, normally there's a power button. But because the case is the one that contains the power button, right now there isn't a power button. So what you have to do is, it looks awfully janky. Sorry, that's just me plugging in the video to the monitor. So when the computer powers on, I should be able to see it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take these little pins down here, that's these ones, and these are for the power switch, reset switch, the hard drive light, loads of other stuff associated with the front of the case, lights, LEDs, things like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the two power pins, power switch, and I'm going to short them. And the computer lives. That was a little bit worrying. The fan was spinning up and then spinning down again, but actually now it seems to be stable. Oh goody goody gumdrops. So let me just show you quickly what I can see. So I've got the graphics card is spinning, the processor's turning, the RAM's lit up, and then I've also got video out. So this is really good. So it's detected the CPU, so it's an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 6-core processor, which it is. It's got the memory, 16 gigabytes of it at 3600 speed. And there's a new CPU installed. Please enter setup to configure your system. Press F1 to run setup. So as far as I'm concerned, that's actually all working as it should. So I'm going to knock down some of the components. I'll take the graphics card out, take all these wires off, and then I'm going to put it in the case and then run it up from there. And then we'll finally install Windows, do some cable management, and get the rest of the other ancillary components in, like your big hard drive, and yeah, good times. Okay, so we're back. We've got the case in place. I'm not going to show you how pretty it is and everything. It's all taken apart at the minute, so you'll get that nice surprise towards the end. In the box, there's, I don't know, a lot of screws. So all these are all going to go together in here with the motherboard and the RAM and the hard drive and everything, and I'm going to do some cable management, make it all look pretty. And yeah, I've got a lot of screws to get through, so let's get started. Normally the first thing you do is there's a little I/O shield that goes in the back here, but because your motherboard's super fancy, it's already got one built in, which is a really nice touch. So, holding it by the processor, I've already checked actually, normally you have to put these little screws in yourself, and these little points, but actually in this case they're already in for RTX motherboards, which is a super nice thing. Normally it's a real pain. So slide that in under the fan, and then one of the little locating screws, oh look at that, straight in, first time. Now what I did notice is there's a little piece of plastic on the top of this sticker. I'm going to take that off in a minute, but I need to take my gloves off to do it, I think. Oh, she coming. Oh, beautiful. I could do that all day. Right, now that the motherboard's in, I need to put the motherboard screws in. And I'm probably going to zip this along a little bit because it never goes well. I always end up dropping one on. Graphics card going in. Sorry if you can't see, the screws are a little bit fiddly around the back. Well, graphics card installed. So now we'll throw the power supply into the basement. Oh no. Put this door back on first before I forget about it. This door is actually for vertically mounting your graphics card, but if you do that, the fans end up against the glass, and then you can't really cool it. You know, the fans can't breathe. I don't know, some people like it like stylistically, but I think for a system that's going to be used for gaming, like primarily, it's going to be under a lot of load. I wouldn't mount it vertically. But, you know, time may tell. The fan draws air in through the bottom, so this little plate on the bottom's actually got a cover on it. So what you're going to want to do is every few weeks is just knock that cover out, just bang all the dust out of it. It's easy to do, I'll show you later. Just got to find the holes that line up. Remember I said I was going to lose those screws? Well, I didn't. Must be a first time for everything, I suppose. Oh no, tell a lie, I've already lost one. Yep, she gone. Luckily, I got some spares. I need to find that screw that I've lost actually, because I'll end up running the side of the case over it on the table and scratching something. The enviable task of wiring. No, we're not going to do wiring, we're going to put the big hard drive in this. Oh, okay, you can't see a goddamn thing, can you? Oh. So this is your hard drive for putting all your games and things on. So this is like quite big. Well, it's a 2 terabyte unit, it's the biggest one I've ever put in. Yeah. 2 terabyte Barracuda, 7200 RPMs. And they go in this cage down here, so I need to get this cage out. What I'm doing is I'm actually putting too many screws in, and what that means is that for the future, when you need to do any upgrades or anything, then you can just remove the extra screws to install the additional hard drives. And that way you don't have to worry about where you put all the little screws for all your stuff. The screws have left little marks in the case, so I'm trying to put them back exactly where they came from, so you don't get two sets of marks. Oh, I unscrewed the back on screwdriver. Right, hard drives need power, so that'll be one of this god awful mess of cables. I'm not sure they make them long enough. Oh my god. It's a nice cable management solution, but it's a bit fiddly. Put the motherboard cable at the back. Oh yeah. There we go. Now it's not as fiddly. I'll not pull them tight just yet, I might need to adjust them later. And I'm definitely going to forget to cut them off. Let's go around front and grab them cables. So I've got the cables pushed through. So I didn't want to bore you with all the wiring and all that mess, so I just kind of did the wiring, because it's just a lot of following cables around. So this is actually the last piece of the puzzle. Absolutely everything's in, everything's connected. I haven't turned it on yet, but this is your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Again, I have to take this little plate out. I locate a screwdriver. So this little module, what it's doing is it gives you access to Wi-Fi. There is Ethernet on it, but if you're away from the Ethernet, then obviously you want Wi-Fi. But it also gives you access to Bluetooth headphones, Bluetooth mice, because it's also a Bluetooth module. Alright. Well, that's everything installed. There's still the aerial to add on to it, but for the time being I'm going to connect it to Ethernet, so it's a little bit faster for installing all the stuff that I need to get it working. So officially that's the PC built. I'm going to put the sides on and do a little montage.